Awesome.
Mr. Chair, the YouTube live stream has started. You can begin.
Okay, welcome back. We're continuing on with our agenda. We're at item number 11, which is 130 Symington Avenue. It's an application to construct a two-story addition, a front basement walkout, and a rear yard deck. Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 1. We have photos, support from 128 right next door. And in the additional materials, we have supporting materials for use at the hearing. And the speaker for this application is Ozren Stambuk. That's the only speaker.
Hi, this is Ozren.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we have 5 variances before us. Panel members, do you need a presentation? We got photos and support. Or someone just want to ask the agent some questions. Ozren, is there anything you'd like to let the committee members know?
No, there isn't anything, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I feel it's a pretty straightforward application due to the location of this dwelling on this street.
Okay. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Stambuk, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Kumar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find the application meets the 4 tests, is minor in nature and desirable. I therefore would like to move approval, subject to forestry condition number 1.
Thank you. We have a seconder for that. Ms. Alderson, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Stambuk.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next application is item number 12, 19 Brock Street. And this is an application.
Mr. Chair, you've muted yourself.
I know I didn't touch anything, I promised, but somehow it went on to mute. So I'm back. So again, the purpose of the application of this is to convert the dwelling into a community center and to construct a 3-story addition with a 2nd and 3rd story platform, rear stairs for each story, and a front basement walkout. There are 3 variances with that. We have a cover letter from Urban Strategies and a 7-page cover letter and explanatory email for there are some revisions, but the variances have not changed. We have Toronto right-of-way has no objection and transportation has no comments. And in the additional materials, we have a presentation and support from the Parkdale Residents Association and from 25 Brock, an opposition letter from 25 Brock and 3 letters of support. So the speaker for this application, we have several. The agent is Antonio DeFranco. And then we have various neighbors, 1, 2, 3, 4 neighbors in total registered to speak, provided they're all on the line. I guess Mr. Moderator Adam Wills will let us know in due course. So let's hear from Mr. DeFranco. Welcome, sir.
Hi there, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Antonio DeFranco. I'm a planner at Urban Strategies, and our office is at 197 Spadina Avenue, and I'll be representing the owner today. I do have a short presentation, which I'm happy to walk through. And just, to get started, I wanted to provide a bit more color about the owner, which is Band Gallery. And so the owner is actually, in fact, a non-profit charitable organization, and they're focused in the arts and culture sector. BAND, in fact, stands for Black Artists Network and Dialogue, and their mandate is to support and showcase artistic and cultural contributions of Black artists. There is a gallery space that they own, which is located at 19 Brock Avenue in Parkdale, and it's been operating there since 2017 within an existing 2.5-story semi-detached building. Over the years, the organization has thrived, and it's become a very valuable community space and an asset to the Parkdale community. And so the band organization is in fact looking to expand, to renovate its facilities. And what they're trying to do is increase the amount and the quality of the gallery space and the programming space that they have today. The renovation will increase the amount of space, but also increase the quality of the space, and in fact make the gallery more accessible to the public, which is really the primary goal here for band. The renovation includes a series of interior alterations, as well as roughly a 9-foot addition off of the rear. And it also includes the repurposing of the 3rd-story attic space, which is currently not occupied, and they're looking to repurpose that space into usable floor area. And in terms of the variances before you today, there are 3, and they're relatively straightforward. So I'll walk through them in order. One is on the floor in terms of the density, the floor space index. There certainly is an increase in area that's being proposed here, and there's 2 real components to think of. One is that there is additional space being created through the rear addition, as well as through the repurposing of the 3rd floor. And then the other important nuance to this is that the basement is also being renovated. And because this is a non-residential building, the basement space does count towards GFA. And so that's why the number might appear a little bit higher than normal. If we were to exclude the basement space, as is usually done for typical buildings, the density is about 1.7 times the site. But again, this is all community space, cultural space, and we see this as being a positive asset to the community. The second variance is with respect to the side yard setbacks. This is the south setback. And so it's important to note here that this is a corner lot. And so the existing condition has in fact a 0 setback to the south lot line. And what this addition will do will just in fact maintain that existing setback. And it's important to note that because this is a corner lot, there really is no immediate neighbor to the south. And as a result, there's really no impact. And either, if you can see some of the images in the presentation, if there are questions around that. The third variance is around parking. And I don't think this is really an issue. We have support from transportation staff. This is a really small cultural facility, and it doesn't generate significant car traffic. Most people access the space through by foot or walking and cycling. So I think that's a summary of the variances and some of the thinking around them. I think in terms of the overall conclusions, we do see these variances as being minor. There's very minimal impact on neighbors or nearby properties. The variances meet the intent of the OP and the zoning bylaw in terms of the use, which is a permitted use. And I think the goal here is to create a vibrant community and to support that diversity of space, but within the Parkdale community. So overall, I'd say that these are appropriate and desirable, and they do represent good planning. And as mentioned by the chair, there is support from the Parkdale Residents Association, as well as other neighbors within the area. So I will pause there and happy to answer questions.
Question.
Thank you, Mr. DeFranco. Before we get into questions, I just want to state something here. First of all, I see that on the speakers list is the co-founder and director of the Band Gallery. I don't know if we have to hear from them because you're representing them. You made the presentation. Also, just in terms of fact, we have 3 variances before us, just to clarify before we hear from people that the use is not an issue. Sometimes we see where it's not a permitted use what's seeking. There's no use variance. It's variances 1, 2, and 3. The major one is the floor space index. We heard because the basement counts, otherwise it's 1.7. The other 2 look rather, it's just the parking issue. And other than that, there's no issues about the use here. So just start off with that. Mr. Taylor, you wanted to ask a question?
That was Mr. Komarek, sorry.
Oh, Komarek. Okay, thank you.
It was actually regarding the use. I just wanted to clarify that the current use is a commercial use.
Sorry, so the commercial use it's considered a community use, community center use. And so it is a permitted use within the R zone under the site-specific provisions, the exceptions as well.
No, I understand that, but the current use is not residential.
No, it's not residential. It's a gallery space. It's a community space.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because the purpose of the application says to convert a dwelling, and that's really why I just wanted to clarify that we're not actually doing a change of use here from residential to community use or whatever. Residential.
Yeah. Or I guess that we are, that there's no variance, a attributed to that, but it's usually would show as a variance that community center is not permitted in AR zone. We don't see that wording here. So all that's before us is the FSI.
Exactly. It is a long-standing use, so it's been there since 2017. So yeah, as the chair said,
It's a legal current use, basically.
Exactly.
And the use is not changing.
Exactly.
It would be legal non-conforming.
Well, it's not showing up as that either. That would normally
That
show
would
up.
still be a variance.
It's not showing up as legal non-conforming?
No.
No.
It's legal and conforming. There's a site-specific exception which allows the
Okay.
community
Yes.
use. So
Okay.
that's why it wasn't flagged by the zoning examiner, because we do have a PPR on file.
Okay.
Otherwise, perhaps the Madam Secretary Treasurer can weigh in. We'd have a variance showing this is an enlargement and or an extension of an existing non-conforming use. We don't have that here. We have 3 variances, as I said, parking and deficiency and an existing side yard set lot block and then the FSI. That's it.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's hear, I guess, from the next, we have the Mr. Ian Krikorka at 25 Brock Street, registered on the list. Speak as a neighbor.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, more than anything else, I wanted to get some ideas about what's going on because I was totally blindsided, my wife and I, by this. You know, the first we heard about this was from the letter. Band never came to talk to us about this. And I guess the first thing I'm wondering is, how is this not a residential space? I mean, we're never asked about whether I never saw any other variance before in 2017 if it was going to be changed from a residential space to a non-residential space. And this application does say that they're going to be converting it from a dwelling to a community center. And I guess I could get into my concerns from there. My wife and I have been living here with my son for 15 years. And I guess I'm having trouble considering this a minor variance. My main concern is with noise because band already has regular events with amplified music, and it's really reduced, if I'm being honest, my family's enjoyment of our property on a number of occasions. You know, sometimes you don't want to listen to other people's amplified music when it's being played. And I guess I'm worried that an expanded band that changes from a gallery to a community center this is not typical household noise found in a residential area. On multiple occasions, I've had to go to band and just ask them to turn it down, the volume down, and my wife has to ask large groups outdoors on the sidewalk to keep it down late at night. And the backyards in this row of houses that I share with my next door neighbors, Jane and August, I mean, it kind of forms an amphitheater, sort of, because it's a courtyard, and the Brock Loft forms an L, and all the sound is amplified that comes out of there. A couple summers ago, I was trying to read to my son in our backyard when amplified music started up, and you know, that activity became impossible. So I tried to use it as an object lesson for him. If you can't beat them, join them. And so we went to the performance, and there was live amplified music being played there. Within minutes, the police arrived to shut it down, which means I'm not the only person, you know, who has an objection here. I'm not the one who called the police. I went to try and join the crowd in this. So I guess I'm really confused in general because nobody from band came to talk to me. How is this not how is this being used in a non-residential way? How is this allowed? So the zoning has already been changed, I guess, from a non-residential. I'm confused about the whole thing. If I could get some insurance that the number of days of amplified music would be kept to some number, I mean, it would go a long way to allaying my concerns, but I want to enjoy my outdoor space too in the summer. I mean, just as an aside, I did show these plans to a qualified architect who told me in no uncertain terms that the floor space index is way over what is typically allowed. she calculated at 2.31, and she doesn't consider that a minor variance. But if I understand what Antonio said, that's probably not accurate because maybe they're not counting something because it's no longer a residential space, whereas I did think it was a residential space. Anyway, you know, I'm open to having my mind changed. I'm a reasonable person, but there's already a lot of loud music and many events during the summer that come out of there, and I'm afraid this will be expanded.
Thank you, Mr. Korka. Thank you for that, letting us know what your concerns are.
So if Antonio could address those
Sorry?
questions, I beg your pardon. If Antonio could address that, or if the committee could address that, how is this not a residential space?
Yeah, okay,
I
so
never
the way it
received
works is
anything.
you ask, you list your questions and concerns, and
Okay,
Mr.
all right, thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
DeFranco will respond, but I just wanted to clarify one thing he did say. It was the opposite, that the 2.31 times coverage for GFA would be 1.7. The basement does count, he said, because it's a community center or a non-residential use, where if it's a residential type use, the basement doesn't count, it would be 1.7. But obviously that space isn't going to be used from the street, it looks the same. So that's the answer to that thing. The rest of it I'll leave for Mr. DeFranco to respond to. But in the meantime, I just want to see if any of the panel members had any questions or comments for you. Okay, so if none, I see we have Karen Carter and Josh Dyer on the line. They are the co-founder and directors of BAND. So I guess perhaps a very short, because they're technically the applicant. Normally you only have an applicant speak when we have an agent presenting, but you were put on the list. So let's have a, just briefly, can you please be brief? I don't know if Karen or Josh will be speaking.
Mr. Chair,
Welcome.
we have Karen unmuted.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I think if I start to talk, I too, like I've heard from others, will probably get emotional. This is safe space for Black artists and cultural workers. And I'm sorry to hear the way our neighbor at 25 has characterized the situation. We retained, thankfully, the assistance of the folks at Urban Strategies to assist us because this is not our lane. And so I prefer to defer to Antonio to address the neighbors' concerns in a professional manner. And that way we don't waste your time with emotional stories that I don't think helps deal with the facts at hand. If you're okay with that, I will leave it.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, you were listed as a speaker, like an outside, like another neighbor, but you're sort of you are the applicant. So
yeah, so we just did that in case Antonio needed to throw to us in order to clarify something. So if he says we need to clarify something, we'll jump in, but we'll leave it to him otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next speaker is Algis Axtinus, 21 Brock.
Mr. Chair and members,
Right next door.
Algis is not present on the call at this time. I'd also like to let you know that we have reached out to them, but no communication was received back. Additionally, we reached April Kui, who is also on the list of attendees, is not present on the call at this time. We have reached out to them, but have not heard any response back.
Okay, in that case, we can circle back to Mr. DeFranco to respond to the concerns of the neighbor at 25, and we had their letter and the additional materials as well, together with those letters of support.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Happy to address the questions and comments. I think in terms of, there was a concern raised about not being spoken to, and my understanding is that the owner has reached out on several occasions, neighbor, the plans, and talk through some of those concerns, but my understanding is he has not been receptive of that. But I think a lot of the comments are around this idea that the use is changing. It is a bit of a misnomer in the notice, and perhaps something that should have been corrected. But the use is permitted, and it is not changing. So I think that's just a fundamental component and a key starting point for us. And Mr. Chair, you did correct the GFA question, which is that the 2.31 includes the basement. And if we were to not include the basement space, it would be the 1.7. So thank you for that. And I think the fundamental concern raised is around noise. And certainly this is a community use. There are events. It's not a secret that there are events from time to time. But what this addition is trying to do is actually increase the amount of interior space, which would mean there could be more space to have these events and programming indoors as opposed to outdoors. So we do think that the variance will go a long way to actually addressing the concern around noise. And I just also wanted to note that the owner, the gallery, they are engaging with an acoustics consultant as well, just to think about noise mitigation through the construction process as well. So that I just wanted to put that out there. And I guess the only third point around noise is, we have been going through COVID, as we all know, and as a result, many of the events have been forced to be outdoors rather than indoors. And so again, moving forward, we do think that with the additional interior space that's being contemplated here, the noise will be less of an issue going forward if it was previously. But again, there are numerous neighbors and the Residents Association who do support the project. So you see this as being perhaps an isolated case of noise issues.
And certainly, I assume you would agree with me that the neighbor or any other person affected has the access to the Toronto noise bylaws for this or any other noise across the city, be it fireworks or anything else. And so there is recourse to anything that's deemed unusual or like someone mentioned, someone did show up. So
yeah, that's exactly right. And I think bands, they do want to be good neighbors. They've long been good neighbors, and that's going to continue to be their objective is to be neighborly and respectful of those nearby.
Right. And the fact you mentioned the acoustics is I was just on the tip of my, as you mentioned, the noise. If they're doing the rebuild, perhaps if they include some sound attenuation to some reasonable amount, it would go a long way keeping everyone happy. Okay, does anyone have any questions for any of the speakers, or should we bring it into committee for discussion or a decision?
Just comment. I see some comments from planning department about some privacy screens. Can I ask the applicant about that and whether they're agreeable to? These are emails. It looks like October 2022.
Absolutely. So the comments came from city planning, and as a result, the plans were revised, and so the revised plans do show the privacy screen. So the owner is absolutely amenable to including those.
Sorry, where are the privacy screens? Can you just clarify in the site plan where the privacy screens are?
Yeah, so they would be they show up in the section drawing of the elevation drawing. They're actually between the neighbor to the north along the outdoor patio spaces.
So I take it if it's on the drawings, it's already part of or what has to be specified to make sure that that's included.
That's right. It shows up on the A31 drawing if you do want to refer to those.
So, Madam Bartzik, if based on its inclusion, unless it says to be built substantially and construct as illustrated or whatever, would that be deemed to be included, or do they say, well, that was or should that be mentioned if Mr. Palmer's going there, actually be mentioned as a condition?
You can say that the privacy screen shall be provided as illustrated on drawing A31.
Okay, so if the member wanted to include that, that would be the way to do that, to ensure that it would be provided as part of the decision.
And I did check the zoning review, so the purpose is correct. We didn't question the use as being not permitted. It doesn't say to permit a community center, but when I look at the zoning review, it says a search of building permit records has failed to yield any building permits for the conversion of the existing residential building to a community center. And then, but it does say a community center is a permitted use in an R zone, subject to certain conditions. So I'm assuming they've met those conditions since it's not a use variance before you today.
And it sounds like it was addressed. It was at least someone took their mind to it, as opposed to just if it got missed and it got missed. And but it sounds like you're saying it was looked at.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Palmer, you have your answer. Does that lead you to a segue to a motion?
Just one other question. In the transportation email, and this is for staff, I guess, it indicates some sort of encroachment agreement, I believe, is required or something. I have no objections to any installations within the Toronto right-of-way. A directive will be issued and owner applicant will be enter into an encroachment agreement when completed. So should we make that a condition if we deem, if we want to approve this application?
We have a subsequent email dated October 11th, and it says that they have no concerns. So if they wanted that as a condition, they would have asked for it because it's within the municipal lands. They're responsible for governing that.
Okay, thank you.
So is someone ready for a motion?
Seeing as how you acting. Oh, Don, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, much of this conversation has been about the use of the land, and that's not really an issue. It's the use is permitted in the zoning bylaw. So we're focused on the dealing with 3 variances, all of which I find to be in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2, as well as a condition that privacy screens be constructed as illustrated on drawing number A31.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion, Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. DeFranco, and thank you to all the other participants in this matter, Mr. Kirkoka and Ms. Carter. Thank you. And we can next move on to the next application, being application number 13, 98 Wilcox Street. It's to construct a 2-story rear addition with a rear basement walkout. There are 2 variances. We have 3 letters of support. One from 100 Wilcox, which is adjoined to 98, as well as from 88 and 96. As far as I can see, we have nothing else whatsoever on this application. And we do have one speaker, the agent for the applicant, Frank Bellini. Welcome, Mr. Bellini.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. As you said, I believe it's pretty straightforward and minor in nature, especially because they took the length from the front of the bay and not the main house, but because the bay, which is 1 story, has a foundation, that's why it's a meter longer than allowable in the building, in the bylaw. So, and the stair there is, as you've seen from the neighbor, they don't have any issue with it. And I hope you can, I hope you feel that this is minor, and if you have any questions, please, I'm willing to answer.
Okay, members, any questions for Mr. Bellini or someone ready for a motion? Do not appear to be any conditions. Mr. Kumar?
Yeah, I find the application to be minor and certainly meeting the 4 tests, and therefore would like to move approvals with no conditions.
Thank you. Seconder for that, Ms. Alderson. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Bellini.
Thanks very much.
Okay, next application is item number 14, 43 Millwood Road, brackets 50 Davisville Avenue. This is an application to construct a new 3-story community and aquatic center on leased lands adjacent the Davisville Junior Public School building, and there are 4 variances. We have a cover letter with photos, supporting material. We have objection from 72 MILLWOOD, and Urban Forestry looking for condition number 1. And we have speaker, the agent for the applicant, or the applicant is Ryan Guricic.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, we have other speakers, but they all appear to be just available for questions. One is the Senior Project Coordinator, Capital Projects, Parks, Forestry, and Recreation at the city. We have another speaker, Susan Lewin, who is the architect, available for questions, and Mr. Beltrano from the TSB, available for questions. So I guess I looked at this list and say, well, we have 4 speakers, but it looks like we may only have 1. Mr. Guricic, sorry for the pronunciation of your name. Doing my best.
No worries. So my name is Ryan Juricic. I'm from CSMP Architects. I'm the representing agent. And as you mentioned, the other people who are the owner and also the City of Toronto we have on the call are just mostly here to respond to any questions as needed. So I did actually provide a little presentation, if that could be shared. It just walks through the items to help explain it. Just to give some quick background on the project, the proposed community and aquatic center is designed to act as a community hub. So it does actually have a direct underground connection to the adjacent school, and it's meant to share uses with the school as well. The community center provides much needed public amenities for the area, and Councillor Matlow has had a significant role in negotiating this specific location and the concept with the TDSB. As you mentioned, the project is within the leased area that was initially set by the TDSB and sits within the larger property of the Davisville Public School site that is owned by the TDSB. And we've worked with the TDSB throughout this, and they have full support of this application. Since that lease line being set, there was conversations with city planning staff, the TDSB, and City Parks and Recs staff to actually expand the public realm south of the building. And that's how we've now resulted in this 3.5 meter setback that's required at the south there. So the first variance, I don't see anything on the screen, but the first variance is regarding the south setback. And that's related to that our building does protrude slightly south beyond that setback. Yeah, you can see it here, boxed in blue. It's just, that's actually just where the exit stair is located. But otherwise, to the right and left of that, we've done our best to carve out more public space and provide furnishings such as benches and planters in that area to contribute to the public realm. We also have a setback, which is about 2.8 meters to an overhead louvered screen above. So that does protrude a little bit further than this stair, but it is above pedestrian level. It's about 12 feet above, so it doesn't affect the public realm. The next variance, please, just the slide below that. So this one is actually taken from the lease line to the property line, and so it's a 3 meter setback. Given the program of the site, we've pretty much maxed out this lease line. Within that 3 meter setback, there's a public walkway that connects Davisville to Millwood Avenue at the north. I also just want to mention that currently to the west of this site is a parking lot area, which has been proposed for new development. That proposal is in planning right now, so nothing's been confirmed. But there is on that development side proposed another 3 meter wide setback, and then also a drive aisle as well. So there will remain a significant setback to the building even in the future. And then the minor variance item number 3 is regarding the distance between the buildings. So again, this is a result of the lease line and us maxing that out. It's 7.44 meters between the community center and the school. As I mentioned, these buildings are almost like one building. They are connected. They're on the same property. This sort of closer, it isn't a situation where these are two separate buildings on two different properties.
Yes.
And then the next item, item 4, the last one is just related to height. So the proposed building is 17.44 meters. That's actually to the top of the mechanical screen. I added in a little aerial view there so you can see that mechanical screen is just at the top right corner there. And the majority of the building is actually lower than that. I also want to note that the school next door is about 14.5 meters to its tallest point. The next highest point of our building after the mechanical screen is about 14.9 meters. So we're not that much taller, but this is sort of the reality of height for a 3-story community center.
Yep.
So that's all I had to present today. Yeah.
Thank you for walking through those. They, you know, to my view, and yeah, they're relatively minor. We have one letter of objection from someone way down on MILLWOOD, you know, going to the trouble of calculating they're okay with variance 1, the other 3, they go to the trouble of calculating the percentage and say it's not minor and shouldn't be allowed. So without any reasons or whatever. So basically this is a win-win for the community, for the school, for everyone. Like you said, the bylaw, the 10th and the second bylaw, the distance of the buildings is the intent because they're related on the same lot. Committee members, any questions for the agent, or is someone ready for a motion on this?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank
I
you.
find this application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. It is certainly desirable for the community, and I move for acceptance with urban forestry condition 1.
Thank you. A seconder for that? Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the application is unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Gurich, and all those others on the line listening in. Okay, next application is item number 15, 208 Roxborough Drive. It's an application. It's an application to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition, a rear cantilevered extension on the 2nd floor, an attached garage at the rear, and an habitable space in the attic. There are 13 variances on this. We have presentation. Mr. Trevor Gain will be presenting and supporting materials with that, an arborist report. Urban Forestry has comments regarding tree number 3. Heritage Planning advises they will sign off on this when everything is done. Ravines and Natural Feature Protection has no objection. Their notes, they mentioned I don't think there's something about injuring or removing a tree. TRCA has no objection. There are 2 letters of opposition, 2 copies actually, from 206 Roxborough next door, and one from 100 Binscarth, and that's all we have. Oh, and the additional materials, Heritage Planning has given us a condition of approval that before issuance of a building permit, the plans are to be done to the satisfaction of the manager of Heritage Planning. And as I mentioned, the Urban Forestry 1 and 2. That's all we have. Speaker for this, the applicant is Trevor Gain, and we have one neighbor next door, Lorna Marston at 206 Roxborough Drive. Mr. Gain, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Trevor Gain. I'm the agent and applicant here on behalf of the owners. For my presentation, can I get my presentation material up on the screen? As you mentioned, the application before you is we have an existing single-family detached dwelling, and we're looking to remove a small 2-story section and replace it with a 2-story addition with a 1-story attached garage. Second page, please. Can we go to page 2? get that whole diagram on the screen. What this is our site plan, and just to kind of explain the variances, this is a ravine property, so half of our lot is truncated because of the long-term stable top of bank. The way it works out, the green line kind of on the right that meanders, that's our physical top of bank. That's a retaining wall, and there's about a 2 to 3 meter drop down to the ravine. Heading to the left, the next line over, the orange, that's our long-term stable top of bank as generated by our geotechnical team. And from there, there's a 10-meter setback hard stop by zoning and TRCA. However, like most properties out onto ravine, the house is within that 10-meter setback, and that's what's represented by the blue line. That is the extent of the original addition, which is kind of outlined and dotted in red. And TRCA has recognized that and basically stated that we can go no further towards the ravine than that point, and that's our new hard stop. Just continuing along to the left, the pink line represents the calculated front yard setback. That's the average of the two adjacent dwellings. And given this house was built in the 1800s, there was no zoning, there's no regulations, and you can see the good chunk of the house is within that front yard setback. So this is sort of relevant, mainly because in the middle you can write the bubbled area. You see no change. Part of our variance is that we have building length, building depth variances. So the building depth is actually existing because, again, from the front wall or from the front yard setback to the back of everything, we cannot go any further closer to the ravine than what we have right now. Next page, please. So in this sketch here, this sort of represents where the massing was and where it's going. So again, the kind of dotted outline behind the original house, that's the two-story structure that's coming down, and outlined in green, that's our proposed addition. You can see the diagonal blue line, that's the hard line of the TRCA setback that we cannot cross. In the bottom right corner, there's an existing detached garage. That is being removed, and we're going to do an attached garage now on the north side of the property to kind of open up that bottom corner for amenity space for the homeowners. Next page, please. So in these photographs, photograph D, that's the existing two-story portion of the house that will be demolished. Our new addition is going to be about 1.4 meters extending beyond that to that sloping blue line that I mentioned earlier, and then kind of heading to the right on that photograph. Photograph E, there's the detached garage that will come down. And photograph F, this is standing kind of in front of the garage. Look to the north. You can see the structure on the left. That's the piece that's coming down, which will eventually be replaced by our new structure and heading towards the neighbor's house or to the north property line. Just to speak quickly about the variances, because when you apply the bylaw to these old properties, you get very skewed numbers. So we have 13 variances. The first one I'd like to talk about is floor space. We're allowed 35% in this area. We're asking for 64. Again, the number is kind of skewed simply because our lot is truncated, because even though we got a 400-foot deep lot, we're only allowed to use the first kind of third of that tableland and even from the long-term stable top of bank. So the numbers are off, but just so the committee knows, the existing house as it stands right now is 46%. And we're adding about 200 square meters of habitable space, of which about 72 square meters of that number is actually within a new habitable attic. So the massing, almost 30% of that is within the structure itself, no new massing added to the project. The next variance is variance 6 and 7, are specifically dealing with building length, building depth. I kind of mentioned about that earlier. So we're allowed 17 meters and we're asking for 25 meters building length. That's front wall to back wall. Again, an old house, the existing dwelling is already at 24.29 meters, and our addition is only extending about 1.4 meters beyond that to meet up with that setback from the TRCA. So the addition is not that excessive. And I mentioned earlier about building depth. That's existing, again, front wall to back wall to that blue line. Regarding height, can I get, on our submitted drawings, can I get page 8, which is A107 on, it's a rendering on our plans. We're asking for, there's no height variance, but we have wall height variance. This is the modern structure that we're putting at the back of the property. And if I can get that rendering up, one wall height, variance number 8, we're asking for a height variance of 8.75 meters. That one, yes, please. We have a dormer in the back wall, so that 8.75 meters goes to the top of that dormer. There's the structure in the additions that we're proposing. And then on the two sides, we have height variances of 6 centimeters, which is probably a pretty good definition of minor variances. The other variances, variance 2 and 12 and 13, are just relating to the setback. Like I mentioned, the way the zoning works, that if you're within that 10-meter setback, they don't tell you how close you are. You're just basically supposed to stay out of it. So that's why we have variances stating that, we got 0 setback on the rear lot line. So kind of just a technicality. Kind of in closing, I'd just like to mention there's lots sort of regulatory fingers in this pie, so to speak. Heritage, TRCA, ravine, forestry, and including city planning. We have sign-offs on everybody. Very technical project, but a commended job by the team to get it to this far, to get this type of approval in place with all these signatures of support. And the owners did go through the neighborhood to try to talk to as many people as we can, and you can see in the list, and I notice I'm out of time, so I'll wrap it up, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Thank you, Mr. Gain. Members, any questions for Mr. Gain at this point?
Just a comment. The Heritage letter that came in from GBCA Architects cites the house as having been built in 1933, and I think you said late 1800s or something like that. I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Right. My apologies.
Mr. Chair, you're muted. Your mouth was moving, but no words were coming out.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Does no one else have any questions for Mr. Gain?
Yeah,
We'll hear
sorry,
from.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry, for the applicant, the setback on the north side, that's just to the garage, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the rest of it is per your site plan?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if no other questions, we'll hear from Lorna Marsden, the neighbor next door at 206, and we have a copy of a letter, I think several copies of the same letter. Perhaps we can get one of them up on the screen.
Lorna, you've made note in your file that you'd like to be on.
Yeah, sorry.
Lorna, you've made a note on your file that you'd like to be on video for your presentation. So I have moved you to the position so you can be on video. But this time you'd have to authorize your own video.
Oh, I see. Okay. So how do I do that?
I think there's a camera button at the bottom of the screen. It probably should start video.
Oh, share. Yeah. Okay. Is that all right?
That's right, Lauren. You continue with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our concern is with the lack of setback along the northern boundary on this property. And I think our submission suggested to that. We have a driveway, which you saw in one of the photographs of the house, which is already very narrow. We do need a shared fence, fence that supports itself between the two properties, partly because of all the wildlife that moves in and out of our properties and up and down the ravine. But we are very concerned about the garage. And as we tried to explain, that's because we already have problems getting, for example, snow removal down the driveway. Both roofs will presumably drain onto the driveway. Ours already is a problem. We cannot get a normal snow plow up. You have to use a sort of handheld snow plow. And so this is, if there is snow draining from the garage roof that is to be built, this will cause serious problems in our driveway. But it would also lead me to question the adequacy of drainage, which is a big issue in this area of the property already. So we're very concerned about that, and also concerned because when other people, service vehicles and so on, go up and down our driveway, I'm afraid they may very well damage the outside wall of the garage, and that would be a shame. We are, as our letter expressed, concerned about trees. I think the top of the bank is being held together a lot by the trees that exist. We have many on our property, and therefore we're concerned about the removal of trees, even the maple tree that I think from the drawings will be taken down in favor of the garage. And we're well, we would really like to have all these issues addressed. The neighbors did approach us, the new neighbors, but only after we'd already put in this submission. And because my husband is extremely frail and ill, so we have a fear of COVID and we don't have people into the house. And therefore we haven't talked to them directly, but those are our immediate problems. I also think that we have a sunroom at the back of our house, which will lose sunlight at large hunks of the day that now has it. But the real problem is that northern line and the total lack of setback. Are you hearing me, Mr. Chairman?
I said thank you. Is that the end? That's all you have to say, or would you like to continue?
That's all I have to say. Of course, I'll answer any questions.
Of course, of course. Okay, does anyone have any questions for the neighbors specifically about that, the north side setback and the impact? And so you're saying you haven't spoken directly with the neighbors or Mr. Gain, and they
We
only
haven't heard from Mr. Gain. No.
They only
No, we haven't heard from Mr. Gain. Okay. And we are trying to minimize our objections to this, but really we think these are very serious concerns that will lead to potential further disputes, which we'd certainly like to avoid.
Certainly. Okay, so I have no other questions. Let's turn it back to Mr. Gain for his rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the owners did reach out to speak with them directly and to set up meetings. And as Ms. Marsden mentioned, that I think as her husband is frail and declined the meetings. Unfortunately, I think a lot of her concerns could easily have been handled with a conversation. I think some of it is just some misunderstanding, specifically about the access up and down her driveway. We're obviously not encroaching onto her property. We're proposing an 82 centimeter setback along that side, which is more than adequate. There's an existing fence. Any fence that needs to be repaired, rebuilt, will obviously stay there. So whatever access she has right now in her driveway will be exactly the same, as we are not encroaching onto that. Drainage, that's a pretty standard thing. Obviously, our drainage is contained on our property, so downspouts will be directed probably towards the front, because normally they don't like them draining towards the ravine. Again, we cannot drain onto the neighbor's property. Regarding the sunlight, in my supporting documentation, I don't know if I can bring that up or not, but we did do shadow studies. Committee member, am I allowed to bring up those shadow studies for conversation? But they're there. The setback between our two-story massing and their house is over 9 meters, and then we have the one-story garage beyond that. This would be under probably my supporting materials, or maybe there's one called shadow studies. I'm not sure. Anyways, regardless, there's a very big spatial separation between houses, and then if we can get the shadow studies up, we took kind of middle of the summer, early morning, late afternoon casting, almost negligible impact, and the same thing in December, where the sun is a little bit lower. Again, no shadows passing on that property. So I don't know. This is not the shadow studies that I'm asking for, but
Sorry, we don't have them available.
maybe they're under. I guess check my presentation. Maybe that's attached. Maybe they attached it to the back of those ones.
No, those are photographs and other things. I don't see any shadow drawings.
Okay. Okay. Well, they should have been there. Regardless. So regarding trees, I know this is not before the Committee of Adjustment, but we do have full applications in with all ravine and forestry. They have no concerns. The one tree that she's commenting about, the maple, that will have to come down to accommodate the garage. In my presentation material, I just kind of highlighted that from the Arborist report. That is not a healthy tree. It's got a canker and it's got a lateral break. It's history of branch failure. There's, I think on their side, it's been pruned right up to the top. So it's a little bit asymmetrically in the canopy. So it's in fair condition, which is pretty much every tree in City of Toronto these days, but it is not a great candidate for retention. So that is the only potential tree that's coming down as a direct result of this application. We have a stewardship plan in place with the ravine, so there's lots of planting that's going to happen down in the ravine as a result of this. And like I said, that'll just be part of the standard conditions of dealing with forestry, which we're working with. So overall, I think we have sort of mitigated and kept, tried to keep their concerns. I'll also just comment quickly. The location of our garage is actually placed there for a reason. It's almost a detached garage. It's a one-story. It's under 4 meters tall, and it could go 12 inches to the property line if it was detached, and we could slide it back. But again, because of that hard line, diagonal sloping blue line that I mentioned about the setback, we pushed it up closer to our addition just to keep it away from the neighbors. When they look out their window and they look out the ravine, it's completely out of the way. So overall, we think what we've done is pretty sensitive to the neighbors.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gain. Any other questions for Mr. Gain or for Ms. Marsden? Or is someone ready to take it into committee for a decision?
Just a quick comment. You mentioned the maple tree, but are you okay with urban forestry conditions 1 and 2?
Yeah, we've already submitted applications, so it's kind of a moot point, really.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Kamarick?
Just a comment, or sort of the pattern is being broken in terms of the driveways. You can have driveway next to driveway. I'm assuming the applicant's also aware that there's a transformer or something in the sidewalk where your driveway is going to exit onto the road?
Yeah, absolutely. The site plan, you can see the driveway bends around that transformer, so it's already been accounted for.
Okay, and that still preserves that tree that's the city tree that's in the front?
City tree in the front is actually a dead tree, and it's actually already been removed by the city.
Oh, okay, okay. I just couldn't figure out how you can juggle between the two, but now I got it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we were take back into committee for a decision if anyone's ready to make a motion. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied that the variances meet the 4 tests, and I appreciate Trevor's commentary on the realities around the garage and the north yard setback. I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2 and the condition requested by the Heritage Planning Department.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Gain. Thank you, Ms. Marsden. And okay, we can move on to the next application, which is item number 16, 89 Logan Avenue. It's to construct first and second story rear and side additions and a third story addition above the existing dwelling with a new rear yard deck. There are 2 variances. We have a cover letter, TRCA comments from my on the last application. Sorry. No, 3 letters of support. Okay. Letters of support are from 3 neighbors, and it looks like there's another batch of form letters as well. And I said we just have cover letter in the TRCA. The speaker for this application is Stuart Hatch. Welcome, Mr. Hatch.
Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to bring to your attention that there is no one by the name of Stuart Hatch on my attendees list on the actual WebEx. Now, with that being said, it should be noted too that they did not officially register for the meeting. Now, with that being said, there is a Jonathan Hatch on my list of attendees, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute them, just confirm that they are, in fact, the Stuart Hatch we're looking for.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Jonathan, are you present on the call?
This is Jonathan Hatch. Yes, I wrote an email in, but it might have gotten missed that I was going to be the speaker.
Okay, welcome. Yeah, it had I guess you're related to Stuart somehow, you're his son?
He is my brother.
Brother, okay. Well, if you were in person, I'd say you look alike, but everything's being done by a phone. So yes, so welcome, very straightforward application. We have 2 variances. I don't believe we need a presentation, and there's no one here with concerns. Is there anything you'd like to advise the committee of?
No, I think you've hit it out of the park. It's a simple application. We have broad support from both neighbors on either side. The house, the whole street is in flux. There's lots of 3-story infill housing, high densities all across the street, and we're building or proposing in line with that.
Right. I see you have numerous letters of support from 66, 87, 91, 165, and 100 Morse.
That's right.
You can say it's all over. TRC has no objection. So members, any questions for Mr. Hatch, Jonathan Hatch, or someone ready to weigh in with a motion? There's no condition.
No one has any questions. I'm prepared to weigh in with a motion.
Yep.
I believe this application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. It's minor in nature and desirable for the street, and move for approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Alderson, seconder for that. Please call it. I don't have a visual on everyone. Now I do. Almost. Mr. Palmer, thank you. In favor, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Hatch.
Thank you.
Say hello to your brother. Okay, our next application is item number 17. It is 68 Gilmour, and it is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached by enclosing half of the front porch to create a mudroom. There are 2 variances, and we have absolutely nothing on file. It's 1 variance, the FSI 0.6 to 0.76. Oh, there's also a front yard setback issue as well. And we have no comments from anyone, no neighbors, no city departments. The speaker for this application is Mr. Imran Khan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Imran Khan. My address is 1906 Parkside Drive, Pickering. To say something about this application, it's very simple and straightforward, also minor in nature. The owner's intentions is to create a mudroom, like around 53 square feet within the existing porch. That's only his intention, right? And the setback is already existing for the existing porch, and the FSI increased because of that 53 square feet of mudroom proposed. So I would say it's simple.
Okay, very simple, like you said, application. They save the easy ones, I guess, for the end of the day for us. Any questions for Mr. Khan, or is someone ready for a motion? I can't see visuals, so just speak up.
And I'm good with the motion if there's no questions.
Please proceed.
I believe the application meets the 4 tests. It's very minor and desirable, and would like to move approval without any conditions.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Alderson. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Next application is item number 18, 99 Braemore Gardens. That's an application to construct a 2-story rear and northeast side addition. There is 1 variance, the FSI of 0.71. And we have on this application an arborist report and an objection from 97 Braemore. And we have 3 speakers on this application. We have, it looks like we have 2 speakers. We have the agent for the applicant, Sev Palazov. We have the owner of the property on the line available for questioning. So Mr. Horowitz, not exactly a speaker. And then we have the neighbor who wrote in with an objection, 97 Braemore Gardens. Mr. Rinaldi or Ms. Bondi, don't know who's going to be speaking. So let's hear from the agent, Mr. Sev Palazov.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. Do you need a presentation?
We do have a neighbor here with objections, so perhaps we could hear what their objection, but I see you only have really 1 variance, the floor space index. Sort of familiar with the area. Is that a typical floor space index, or is it somewhat high for the area? That would be my question for you.
It's typical for, let's say it's typical for this area to have the existing houses beyond the maximum permitted floor space index. In our case, the existing is 0.55.
Right.
And if you can pull just quickly the site plan, maybe best explains.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with this particular pocket on Braemore Gardens.
Yeah, it's a
I
nice
know
neighborhood.
that, it's a particular little pocket in the city, the St. Paul's district riding. So you're showing the backyard extension here.
Yeah, let's go to the site plan very quickly. The addition aligns with the existing back addition, I would say, and infills the corner to the side of the lot to the setback required to the property line. So there is no change to, you see the dash line is the rear yard setback and the allowed area to build.
Yes.
It's just aligning with the existing, and we're taking advantage of the pie-shaped lot to infill the side yard.
Mm-hmm.
This
Okay.
is on the ground floor is 53.6 meters. And the total percentage of increase is 22%. So that's like less than 1/4 of the existing house increase. It's a 2-story addition. And the second floor is set back to allow for better sun for the backyards. That will help also the neighboring property in this case. So you can see here the line of the second floor setback. And there's no addition to the third floor.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Palazov?
Yeah, Palmer, can I just get clarification on the notice and what you're asking for? Because I'm confused. The notice says 0.35, 602.7, and you're asking for 0.71, 428.7. So I think maybe the notice has the existing square footage or something.
I think the notice quotes the lot. So it's 35% of the lot.
Yeah, wow. But there's one with the numbers, these per square meter numbers, there's something wrong there. It's higher on the permitted at 602 square meters. Mr. Palmer's exactly right. And it says that the altered, which is more than double, is less. So something's wrong with these numbers.
Okay, so what you're asking for is 0.71 and that's 428.7, is that correct? That's what you're seeking?
Yes, correct. We're seeking 428. I believe the 602.7 is the area of the lot. So just clarifies in brackets what's the area of the lot.
Perhaps we can correct that when the decision is issued.
Weigh in at this point, Mr. Palmer. Let's just hear from staff, make sure we don't have, I don't think a notification issue. I think we have the correct 0.35 going to 0.71. And if the number, the 602 number is wrong, the 428, but I think most people would be able to figure out that they're looking to double and not look at the other numbers. Madam Secretary Treasurer, what's your position?
Yes, we should have caught that, but the applicant submitted.
We lost you there. The applicant submitted.
Sorry, it muted me as well. We should have caught that, but the applicant submitted a waiver. And those are the figures he indicated on the waiver. So he would have to tell us what the 0.35 is so that we could fix it for the decision.
Okay.
We can go to the statistics page on the drawings.
You have to tell us. We can't figure it out for you. It's your application and you submitted a waiver.
Okay, do we have to do that right now, or can we hear from the neighbor first?
We can hear from the neighbor and then he can tell us what that figure should be in his rebuttal.
Okay, so the neighbor is either Walter Rinaldi or Kim Bondi at 97. The neighbor on the side where you're seeking to place the addition.
Mr. Chair, both Kim and Walter are on the phone, are on the call at this time. So I'll go ahead though and unmute Kim Bondi. Kim, go ahead.
I'd be happy to be on camera too, if that's okay, but I'm not quite sure how to do that. So,
Kim, if you give me
just
one
because,
moment, Kim, if you give me one moment, I can transfer
yeah.
you over there. And now you should be able to turn your camera on. Kim, one moment, please. You're muted here. Okay, you're good to go now, Kim.
Oh, okay, sorry. My husband Walter is here with me, beside me. Just and as my letter stated, our argument is, remains. But just to start off the whole process, we feel that this is not something that we're fighting a developer for. This is our neighbor, and we've had a wonderful relationship with them for a decade. And the reason that we have submitted this letter is because, and we want to continue to have that relationship, is just to be able to discuss a sort of compromise, because we have, as we've stated, we will not be able to use our backyard for over a year. I work in television, on home renovation shows. I know this thing is going to take a lot longer than they even will propose. And there's a tree. Can I go outside and show you? I'm right here. And because I didn't realize that we could actually submit photos.
Sorry, no, you can't show anything that we can't add to the file.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, good. But just quickly, that giant tree, that's what they want to take down. And I know it's not a protected tree. We've read the arborist report, but that tree provides our house with shade, privacy, and once this giant house, already giant house, adds the addition, my daughter's bedroom will not be looking at the tree or looking at the western sun. They will be looking at a brick wall 2 meters away from them. We have a deck on the side of our house. We won't be able to use it for over a year, or for however long this project takes. And it's just the only reason we've got to this point and, sent a letter of opposition is because when they brought it over to us this summer, it felt like it was a done deal. There was no room for a discussion about compromise, if there was. And as we've stated a number of times, we understand we live in a city. Of course, it's their property line. They're able to do what they are proposing, but we are just asking as good neighbors to try to mitigate the level of disruption this is going to cause to our quality of living. And just, learning a lot from you guys today, by the way, and thank you for this. I don't understand how how the FSI is just like, oh, fine, we're just going to double it. And it's totally cool. I just don't understand how that's allowed and considered a minor variance. So anyways, just to state, our letter stands. So Walter, do you have anything to say?
No, we just really want to understand the accurate, we can't, as the committee seems to not been able to glean from from their representative, we need an accurate size. We have no idea right now. We can't really tell from the plans themselves. Yes, it is the pie shape. The pie shape is one thing to say that the pie shape will disappear. And
Yes.
what they're basically doing is moving the house as far as they possibly can to the property line.
Yeah, and decreasing our property, do something. A reason we bought this house to begin with was the pie-shaped lot, was the trees, and now that's going to be, compromised.
And the thing is also that we've gone through reading through the city archives as well, is that over the years, boundary lines blur. And I think what they're proposing is to
Can you do me a favor, please? I've been lenient up to now. This is sort of impressive to have with the tag team. Very few people actually go on camera.
Sorry.
But this is a little, we really should go back to you, Kim.
Okay.
Nothing against Walter. You're in nice to
Okay,
see
no
people.
problem.
So please, if you can, we just stick to you at this point. We've
That's
had
fair.
a team that doesn't work.
That's fair. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. I mean, I guess just to sum up, our main points are the proximity of the house now will be very close to ours. Will block the sunlight. It will make the western side of our house very dark. The tree removal will change the climate in our own house. Our backyard use will be restricted for God knows how long. And yeah, so we would love to be able to come to a compromise with them. Of course, if they want to, it's not a matter of, you know, your house is in disrepair or whatever. Just want to make a larger house even larger without any sort of regard for their neighbors' quality of living beside them. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. I just want to get that before I give it back over to the agent. I just wanted to make a couple of points. Is that first of all, and you're doing a renovation show, and you can imagine that is not. We look at this committee looks at the build form, whether it takes a year, 2 years, or God forbid, you know what it is. And you know, certain I've had people come on a street not far from you on Hilton saying, I have no problem, but there's 10 of them going on in the street. But people saying I got them on both sides. So that is not something we look at. It's obviously issue with disruption.
Okay.
And the other issue you mentioned, you know, how do you go from the doubling it just like that? How can that be minor? And the issue is it's the prevailing character. We also look at the prevailing character, and you know, the city artificially keeps things low. They give them a look at everything. But you know, the prevailing character in your area is not 0.35, as well as, you know, so that's how they look at it. It's prevailing character, whether it fits in. So thank you all. Anyone have any questions from for the speaker? And if not, we'll go back to Mr. Palisov for his rebuttal. Okay. And maybe you should do a TV show on the Committee of Adjustment. Like you say, it's can be quite entertaining. And sorry that this morning session from 9:30 is still going on now, you know, well into the afternoon, but that's the way things go. Okay, anyone have any questions for Ms. Bondi or comments, or can we go back to Mr. Palisov? And I guess, Mr. Bob, you just comment on, I guess, the reason you picked that side is that's the side of the pie. So it made sense that's the place to do an extension. If you can, you know, go to the rationale. Yes.
Yes, hi, thank you for the comment. First, I want to clarify the areas. So the site lot is 60270. 35%, the allowed area is 210.95. 210.95. The existing area is 332.9. The proposed area is 428.7, which is 22% over the existing. Do you need me to repeat some numbers for the record?
No, we just needed the 210.95. Thank you.
Sorry?
We just needed the 210.95. You can continue with your rebuttal now. Thank you.
Okay. So first, we wanted to clarify that this addition is more to the side of the house, and there is no impact on the backyard and the neighbor, because currently the neighbor house is further back. So their backyard really starts from their back wall to their property line. This addition does not extend beyond their back wall. So that's why in the letter, it's mentioned disruption of the backyard. I don't think this has impact on the backyard. It's all on the side yard, and it's very common in Toronto people to use the side property lines, and this is where usually you see walls. When you go between two houses, normally you see a wall on the other side. That's not something uncommon. And regarding the tree, I would like to invite Mr. Horowitz. He reached out to the arborist and has some more information that he can share. If you can unmute him.
Sir, only you're permitted to do the rebuttal at this point.
Mr. Chair, you're muted as a note.
I was saying the same thing that Madam Secretary Treasurer said, that we're not having another it's one speaker. You're the agent, and so we can't hear from Mr. Horowitz. Randomly.
Okay. So, again, the variance is for the area, and that's the only variance. And we acknowledge that construction and airing lot will cause disturbance and uncomfort for the neighboring backyard in this case, because of because of the nature of the construction process. But
okay, how about what I already mentioned, and I think they acknowledge now that the construction is an issue, so let's forget about the disruption. But what about the disruption or the permanent disruption of having that addition? I note there is no variance for side yard, there's no variance for height or length or depth. Your only variance is your FSI or GF, which is, so
yes.
there is no variance there, correct? But they're obviously having a structure closer is an impact. The question is whether it's a permitted impact or not. It doesn't trigger any variances other than the FSI.
Can we look at the site plan just to see the condition of the neighboring house?
A3, I'm looking at A3 right now, yes. So it shows that you respect the side yard setback.
Yes, correct. And also they have increased setback to their house from this property line. So probably I'm assuming they're using the side yard as a backyard, and this is what they're referring to. But there is no, again, there's no impact on the backyard, which is normally the primary concern and the family space.
Yeah, can you look up a location map perhaps as well? Like you can see it's almost invariable. That's where the street starts to curve. So that 97 is on the curve. So, you know, when you look at the lot configuration, it's,
yep.
If it was the first 6 houses, 7, 8 houses, or then the other straight, but the few houses from this property over to like 891 are all on the curve. So obviously the backyards are impacted accordingly, right? So sort of the site condition as you take it. I assume if they wanted to do an addition, they would do it on the same side as well. Okay, and so please continue, Mr. Palazov. Sorry for interrupting. And if you can finish your rebuttal, and then we'll see bring it into committee for a decision.
Yeah, there were comments about the tree in the arborist report. The tree just happened to be in the construction zone, and that's why it was proposed for removal. It is in the Mr. Horwitz property, and it's on the side of the house for the neighbors. There was also in the report, you can see that it was damaged from the last snowstorm. So it's not it's in a fair to poor condition. It's not in the perfect condition, but I can't speak about the tree much. If you cannot unmute Mr. Horwitz, that's my only comment. Also, in the letter, I noticed that it was said that when the tree is removed, the roots will have an impact on the foundations. I think roots have impact when they grow. That's what happens in my house. So if the tree is not there, I don't see how the roots will have a negative impact on the structure in the future.
Are you going to excavate down for the addition, or is it on slab on grade?
No, it will be excavated down to the level of the existing basement.
Right. So if there are roots under the excavation, that's how it's going to affect any boundary trees, no?
Right. But on their side, the roots on their property, how they will be impacted, their structure. I don't think there will be an impact. The house is far from the property line where the tree is.
No, I don't think we're looking at about an impact on their house. We're looking at about the impact of your excavation on trees.
Oh yeah. The trees proposed
can be as high as wide as the. I'm not an expert either, but I've learned from being on the committee. The roots can be as wide as the tree canopy. So I think that's the intent, that the excavation could damage. But anyway, urban forestry and their wisdom are dealing with this. Urban forestry is asking for condition number 2 on this if it gets approved. Okay, so please continue. Sorry, you're actually over, so quite a way. So please wrap up, and we'll see what the committee feels.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Members, any follow-up questions for either Mr. Palazov or Ms. Bondi Or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just another comment related to Ms. Bondi's question about how we could possibly consider approving an FSI of double what's permitted. I'm not concerned about FSI unless it impacts on side yards, rear yard, front yard, or height. And in this case, this proposal doesn't affect any of those aspects. So FSI in and of itself, doesn't really bother me as an impact item. I don't really see that there is an impact. The impact is related to the things that I mentioned. So I'm satisfied that this single variance meets the 4 tests, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2. And I guess we need to also include in the motion an amendment to the application itself to clarify that the FSI is 0.35 times the lot area being 602.7 meters squared, resulting in an approved square meterage of the house of 210.95, or some other language that's much more articulate than that.
Yeah, we'll fix my variance 1 to say that 0.35
Perfect.
is 210.95 square meters. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor, for that motion. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? Ms. Alderson, you're opposed. The matter carries 4-1 with Ms. Alderson dissenting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just believe it's an overbuild.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Palazov, Mr. Horowitz, and Ms. Bondi. And we can move on to the next item. Item number 19, 76 Roncesvalles. And this is an application to construct a 3rd-story rear addition above the existing dwelling. There are 2 variances, and we have support. Actually, it was something bookmarked as support. In fact, it's a letter from the homeowner to the committee, being the rationale for the variances. We have a cover letter in the additional materials and 2 letters of support. 1 Pearson and 78 Roncesvalles next door. We have 1 speaker, Rupak Mazunder. Rupak, welcome. Is Rupak?
But does he know that he's at home?
I think someone in the room has unmuted their computer.
Yeah, we confirm that, Barb.
Yes,
I've got that
there.
fixed too.
Mr. Moderator, what's we have Rupak unmuted, or?
Mr. Chair,
I've unmuted him now.
we're good to go. So Rupak can go.
I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. I guess I'll be brief. Our goal is to stay within the existing footprint and house structure and replace our existing 3rd floor deck with more habitable space. So namely a 2nd bathroom and expanded office. We've lived here for 15 years and 2 things have changed. One, our kids have become teenagers, so lineups to the bathroom each morning has been a challenge. And number 2, increased virtual work. So we need more office room. So the current deck is not really being used. We've only been on it maybe 10 times over the last 15 years. We've spoken to our immediate neighbor on the other side of us to the north, and she has signed a non-objection letter, which is enclosed. And we're not aware of any objections from neighbors, period. So it matches generally what other neighbors have done in the Roncesvalles neighborhood. We believe these variances to be minor since we're building on the existing structure. The floor space index is 0.91 of the lot, which I think is relatively reasonable. and it doesn't really impact the streetscape and only really visible from houses beside us. So to sum up, this reno would solve two existing household problems for us while replacing an unused wasted space. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mazinder. Yeah, we have your letter, which was actually bookmarked as a support letter, but I guess it is support, but you're supporting yourself. So members have seen that letter. It was bookmarked as a support letter. And there's no other letters. There's no, committee, no city departments looking for conditions or being opposed to this. And we say you have a letter of support from an adjacent neighbor. So members, any questions for Mr. Mazinder, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I believe Mr. Taylor is trying to make a motion, Mr. Chair. Or we lost Michael.
I think I heard his invitation. Should I proceed?
But he's not here, so let's give him a moment to read that.
Okay.
Okay, Michael, we can see you. Michael, can you hear us?
Mr. Chair, can you hear us this time?
It looks like he's joined on another device.
Hello, sorry, my city computer died, so I'm now just called back in on my phone. Hello?
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Taylor's ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm satisfied that the two variances requested meet the four tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Comerica. I have a seconder for that. I can't see everyone, so please.
It's Stan. I'll second. It was Don that did the motion.
Okay. All in favor? And you can mark me as absent, I guess.
No, we waited for you.
It's
Oh.
unanimous.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay. Yeah, I was using my city computer as a camera, and it just died on me for some reasons. Okay, so the last application of the afternoon is 566 Delaware Avenue North, and it's an application to construct a two-story addition above the existing dwelling, a front porch, a rear yard deck, a second-story rear platform, and a third-story front and rear platform. Lots of purpose to that one. 3 variances, and we have nothing other than opposition from the neighbors at 572 and 570. It's a joint letter from both neighbors, and both neighbors, we have the applicant is Ekaterina Tropinina is the agent for the applicant, and we have the neighbors from 576, one of the co-signers of the letter, as well as the neighbor at 565, who is not a co-signer of the letter, on the line to make submissions. So let's start off with the agent, Ms. Tropinina. Hello?
Mr. Chair and members, Ekaterina is unmuted at this time. Ekaterina, you can go ahead and speak now. Katrina, go ahead. Mr. Chair and members, as a note, Katrina is unmuted. They are present on the call at this time, but as you can see, we can't hear them if they're speaking. Maybe we have them log out and log back in, Mr. Chair?
Maybe she was having the same problem I'm having. Yeah, I guess we have to make contact. We do have the new neighbors in the line as well, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Both area residents are on the call at this time.
Okay.
Mr.
So
Chair,
we
it
have
should
to
be
try
noted, Katrina has officially dropped off the call, so I suspect that they are logging off and logging back on and authorizing the use of their microphone. So bear with me, and as soon as they're back, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
She's back, Adam.
Katrina, you're unmuted, so go ahead. Mr. Chair, members, they are present on the call. They've returned. I am able to unmute their microphone, so they should be able to speak.
Katrina, perhaps you can call in using the instructions on your WebEx invitation because we can't hear you right now.
It's not like we can stand it down. This is the last application of the morning.
Katrina, go ahead again if you'd like to try. All right, Mr. Chair and members, Katrina appears to have called in now, so we'll give that a shot here. Katrina, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Sorry. Let me quit maybe yeah, okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, yes. I had both open. I was trying to log in. Okay, finally, that's good news. Yeah, so I'll try to be quick. The proposed property, it exists. It's existing bungalow, 1 story. It was 70 feet long. It's a very long structure. So we proposed to reduce the existing footprint and add 2nd floor addition a little bit setback from the rear yard, more into the center, and the 3rd level is just a smaller portion, and it's offsetted from the back and from the front of the property. So it's in between the 2 adjacent buildings. The porch, minor variance for the porch being too close to the property lines. This porch is existing as is right now, so we're just trying to build within the same what it is right now. However, we're also trying to improve a little bit the existing footprint because the rear addition of the existing dwelling was built probably without permit and was encroaching on the property line of the neighbors. So we're proposing to remove it and build another wall, which is at least aligned with the front of the house. What else? The eaves, the roof eaves right now are encroaching on the property line of the neighbor. So we're trying to accommodate to have at least some distance from the property line. And it's a little bit challenging because the width of the dwelling is a little bit, it's slightly less than 13 feet. And with this very narrow, space, very hard to plan and, try to remove all this minor variances completely. But we tried to do our best and made as efficient as possible design of the interior. And I've heard that there is a letter from the neighbors. However, I haven't seen it on the file. Or maybe I didn't look, but I just looked before the before the hearing as well. I couldn't see. However, the owner was trying to approach the neighbors, adjacent neighbors, but I think on the left side there is a townhouses, and it's still under construction, so they couldn't. And on the right side there was no one in the house, so they couldn't as well contact no one. So we decided to go as is.
Did you try to contact them before you submitted the application or no?
Yes, we tried because we had the drawings and everything. We didn't have renderings for how it's going to look like. And I told the owner that she must go and discuss because, this is an important part of people's lives and you would like to discuss it up front. But also when we were designing it as a third level and the second level, we tried to move it so it's not extending beyond of the existing buildings on the side. So we tried to be within, so not to block anything like light or enjoyment of other properties, adjacent properties.
Right. Yeah, and I just looked at this letter that it's not dated, so we don't know when it came in, but in any case, one of the two people are here to speak to it. The neighbor at 576. It's been 572 and 570 signed the letter, and actually, of those two neighbors are present. There are two other neighbors looking to speak, which is interesting. Okay, so if you finished your submissions, ma'am, then I'll see if members have any questions, and if not, we'll hear from the neighbors. Does anyone have any questions, panel members, for Ms. Tropinina? I can't, and I don't see you all, so please just pipe up if you do.
Just a quick question, just to clarify. It looks on the proposal, the ground floor does extend beyond the two neighbors. Is that in line with what the existing is, or?
No, actually, we are shortening it by about 5 feet from the existing.
You're shortening what the protrusion is now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because the backyard was too small, so I proposed to make it a little bit shorter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was actually going to ask you what you're seeking to go to 0.91, I think, the 97.
Yes.
You know what you're at currently before the renovation? Are you already over?
It was close to the limit, just 1 story.
Okay, right.
Close to the 0.6, yeah.
Okay, so it already is, even 1 story was almost at the limit. So, okay, so let's hear then we have 2 speakers. The first one is Sarah Fasulo at 596 Delaware.
There. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So sorry, I didn't date the letter I submitted on October 21st, but that letter came from myself. I'm the owner at 576, and I had 2 other neighbors sign it at the bottom from 572 and 570. And I also spoke verbally with the neighbor directly to the south, right beside the property. I'm not sure if he's on the line today, but anyways, he was in support of the letter that I had drafted. He just didn't have time to sign it. So
just hang on a second. I'm just looking at it. Yeah, because I'm just looking at the letter. It's 3-page. Okay, lots of nice pictures. Lots of pictures.
Yep.
trying to see where you signed it, because that's what I originally thought, that I had one of the speakers here who wrote the letter. But I see the letter is only signed by 572 and 570. Where's your name?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had to sign it, but it came from my email, and I was the one that emailed it to the
Okay.
person and
Okay.
registered his name and all of that. So yeah.
Doesn't letters from you, yet it's not even here from you, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I guess.
Okay, noted. I'll sign it next time. Thank you.
We got 3 signatories to the letter. You are right next. You are right. You are at what, 576?
Yeah, so I think I'm 5 houses north. The 2 neighbors that signed it are 3 and 4 doors north, and I spoke verbally with the neighbor directly to the south.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the most directly affected neighbors on either side, or they're not part of this letter, are they?
So the neighbor directly to the south beside it, did not sign this, but he did view it, and he asked, I'm not sure if he's on the line or not, but he asked me to reiterate that he supported this letter, and he would try to make it on the line. I just don't know if he was able to.
We have the neighbor 565 right across the street present on the line in addition to you. So anyway, go ahead. Please proceed. Sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to figure out that you are the author of this letter. So please go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
All fine. Okay, so I just wanted to address the first variance that they're requesting about it's the third point actually, the third variance about the porch. Obviously we're fine with the development itself. It's great that it looks like they're creating a single family home, but we do have an issue with the stairs. It's really not in keeping with the character of the street in general. I've attached photos of the 4 houses directly north of this specific property on the same side of the street. You will see that they all have at-grade front porches. I also included some photos on page 2 of houses directly across the street, which are 2-story bungalow houses as well. They all have either at-grade front porches, or they have 1 set of stairs on either the left or right side of the porch. And so our request is to simply have this porch conform. The 2 sets of stairs coming up to the porch we feel are slightly excessive given the scale of the property and the size of the lot, and the fact that it's not in keeping with any other houses and the character of the street. The second point was addressing the eaves. I believe the owner was speaking earlier that they're actually, maybe I misunderstood her, but they're actually making them smaller. So maybe I misunderstood the application that was submitted. It seemed to me that they were trying to extend the eaves troughs, so they were larger than what they are now. But if that is not the case and they're actually trying to make them smaller, then we have no issue with the eaves trough. And our third final point, we know we can't, my understanding is that the number of balconies they've requested, we understand are within the zoning parameters. We do feel that the number of balconies are excessive, but if it's within zoning, we can't obviously ask them to remove them. We are simply requesting that privacy screens are installed on the north and south side of each balcony at the rear. So that would be the 2nd, 3rd floor, simply because these lots on this street are relatively they're quite narrow. They're between 14 and 16 feet. So we're all sort of crammed in like sardines, which is fine. And we have no problem, with the house that they're building, but if they could please put some privacy screens, that would really benefit the neighbor, at least to the south, who I did speak to, as well as sort of set a precedent, we hope, for the street when other people decide to build homes with multiple balconies off the rear, because it really does affect the privacy and noise transference between neighbors. And we're just trying to all be advocates for each other on the street so we can create some kind of cohesive environment where we all can sort of coexist and not be over top of each other any more than we already are. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Facillo. Question for you. So you mentioned, the fact, I'm not sure if on their plans, I want to hear back from the applicant how high his first floor, at grade supposedly makes for better neighbors or whatever. But where is that related to a variance? You're just saying that it's, you're pointing to a couple of very homes adjacent and say, look, they're all at grade. if it's not related to the variance, why should the committee refuse or make them, I assume by redoing the first floor height, they'd have to do a complete redesign. So what's the basis for saying that they shouldn't have that design? And I think you started out, that was your concern, that you wanted that redesign, correct? You wanted it to be a grade?
Well, I'm referring to this specific variance noted in the application we received from the letter. It's the item number 3 noted on the public hearing. Proposed front stairs will be located 0 meters from the front lot line, 2.25 meters from the north lot line, and 0.61 meters from the south lot line. And I believe it's what actually triggered the public hearing.
No, triggered public hearing is the FSI of 0.97, whereas 0.6 is permitted. That's the big variance. And these, I believe was going to indicate, or she's going to indicate, that the eaves are actually currently encroaching and they are going to be pulled in to 0.04 from the lot line. But the third variance, is that third variance, staff, related to the height of the first floor or other matters?
I think it's just, we're just referring to the actual porch itself and how it's designed with the stairs.
Yeah, you want it to be preferred. You figured it's a good community feature for it to be at grade, being closer to his eyes on the street, all of that stuff. But I'm just trying to ask, on what basis it's got to be affected by a variance. So staff, is that third variance, is that what the Ms. Facillo is talking about? That's
Variance
what
number 3 relates to the setback of the stairs, not the height.
Not the height of the first floor entrance, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was trying to get at. And anyway, I'm not.
And if I could just comment too, and I believe one of the examples she used, the page of examples, has the same number of stairs going up to it as the applicant does.
What's proposed?
Yeah, for 549, it looks like that's the number of the house.
Great. Okay, so the next speaker, does anyone else have any questions or comments for Ms. Facillo? And I appreciate you speaking for the direct neighbors. I don't seem to have a problem with making those comments on, even though they're not directly related to your situation. So the next neighbor is Daniel Kelly. Looks like you're across the street. By the number, it could be directly across. And you're the last
Yes,
speaker.
can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, so you're on the street, sir?
Yes, Daniel George Kelly. I do live across the street,
Welcome.
right across, and one house north. So I'm generally not opposed to this. It will be an improvement, certainly over what's there. I do think, though, that the applicant said they're reducing the footprint, but I think that's true at the back, but I think they are extending the footprint at the front of the house. The applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is how I saw it. I do think, as the earlier speaker said, the balconies here are a bit excessive. On my side, I'm going to have, I think, first, second, and third floor balconies, all of which will be peering down through my front window. So, the style of the front and the number of balconies doesn't particularly excite me, but that's probably not something I can complain about, but I would say that. Is there any requirement as to when construction will start and finish on this? I note that because the house to the north and the house to the south of the one we're talking about have both been under construction renovations for quite some time and show no signs of getting finished, certainly the one on the south. And one other thing, which is not terribly relevant, but there has been zero outdoor maintenance done on this property for months. The front yard is overrun with waist-high weeds, and it would be neighborly if the owner could do something about that. Those are my comments. As I say, overall, it will be a nice addition to the street, and could be even nicer if they tweaked the balconies and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We'll have the agent address the issue of the balcony and the overlook and privacy issues and how that could be mitigated against by privacy screens. I guess typically it's on the sides, whether and having it in the front, as well as, sorry, your other comment. I wanted to see if they would comment on the
The weeds?
Yeah, in terms of the cleanliness of the property, the upkeep, she's on the line and listening to that, so for sure. But in terms of the balconies, whether I believe there are 2 of them in the front, or whether there are 3, but we can have her respond to that in her rebuttal.
All right. And could she also respond to what the timing is when they plan to start work?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. Unfortunately, the committee, and it's really unfortunate, the building department deals with issues of construction. We only deal with the built form after it's built. And I certainly agree that, construction is disruptive, especially when it goes on for an inordinate amount of time. That is becoming an issue in the city. I don't know, city council is looking at some ways of dealing with that. But like I said, we don't deal with it, whatever they tell you, availability of trades and materials and all of that stuff. But again, we can ask the agent to at least respond to that. But that's not something we, look at, is the disruption during construction is not a consideration. We look at the built form issues. So thank you, Mr. Kelly. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? And I appreciate your honesty or candidacy that, newer buildings, it is in some respects an improvement to an older property that hasn't been in disrepair. And specifically, the neighbors shouldn't have to deal with no maintenance, given the fact that the house may be vacant or seeking approval to go ahead and start construction. So, Ms. Trapanina, can we hear you? Can you respond to both neighbors' concerns?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for the questions and your comments. I'm happy to address all of them. So as for the porch with the stairs, original porch was at the position where the stairs are now. So the stairs and the old porch are in the exact same position. We moved the porch inside the house. So we actually reduced the front of the house as well. So we pushed the front porch inside the house and then so we reduced the house from the front and from the back of the existing. We're proposing to reduce. So the problem is not with the porch, it's actually with the stairs being as it was before, but it was a porch before. Now there's stairs. For the eaves, yes, we are reducing the eaves. Currently, eaves are encroaching on the property line of the south and north neighbors. So we're making them shorter, smaller distance, so we have a little bit of distance from the property line. As for privacy screens, I think it's a great idea, but I'm thinking it could be redundant. Why? Because both rear yard terraces are between the buildings. So there is a wall of the south neighbor and the north neighbor. But if still the neighbors would prefer to have, in addition to the wall, a screen, of course, that's something we can add 100%. And for the third floor balcony, I would say, it's in the front, and I think it's more going to work as an architectural feature rather than really is going to be using it that much. It's for, basically it's mostly going to be more like an architectural feature, plus we are backing the third floor to the back, so it's not creating a mass in the front of the street. So it looks less massive, the house. I hope I address everybody's questions. If you have any more, please go ahead and ask.
Yeah, well, can I just clarify what both neighbors you're sort of stressing some of the comments. The guy, Mr. Kelly, across the street, he's not concerned with the rear balconies. He's concerned with the front balconies.
Yeah. That's what I was saying about the front. So in the front, only one balcony in the front on the third level.
Only one. Is it inset for some privacy?
Yeah, it's a recess basically. It's not aligned with the front wall of the building. It's a little bit recessed backwards, and then it recessed more about 7 feet, 6 feet 9 inch until the third floor front wall.
Okay, so you feel
there is a railing around. Yeah.
Okay, and the other neighbor, Miss Facillo, she wasn't concerned where the porch was. She was concerned that it should be at grade like the other examples. And so you said, well, it's where it is, just stairs now, and she knows that. What she was concerned of, and my issue is whether the neighbors should have a right to insist on that, you'd have to do a whole new redesign.
Sure, of course.
She doesn't want the first floor height to be higher. She wants the entry to be in grade. So I'm asked her, how is that a variance? Not a variance.
Yeah, that would be hard to achieve, yeah.
Okay, so that's her question. I just wanted, you to understand her question. Okay, so having said that, so you said there only is one balcony on the third floor at the front for Mr. Kelly, and responded to the other concerns. Okay, committee members, any questions for Ms. Strapinina or the two neighbors, or is somebody ready to take this into committee for a decision? And I can't see hands. I don't have everyone on my screen, so please call out if you have any questions. And if not, I guess we'll take it into committee for a decision.
Taylor, Mr. Chair?
I can't see anyone, so if you want to put your...
Don, Taylor?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Taylor, yeah, I hear you.
I'm prepared to make a motion. Before I do that, just a quick comment. I would never require privacy screens on front balconies, because I think front balconies can serve kind of a community safety surveillance aspect, which would be limited if, street views were curtailed by screens. So anyway, I just sort of make that comment in passing. I believe that the three variances requested meet the four tests, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion.
Stan, I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Kamara. All in favor? I can't see. Can you let me know if it's unanimous?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. So thank you, Ms. Strapinina, and thank you to the neighbors at Ms. Fasullo and Mr. Kelly, and that application is approved. Okay, we are now done for the day. If I can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Ms. Alderson, seconded by?
I'll second, Stan.
Okay, thank you, Stan. Okay, all in favor, the meeting is ended. And thank you, members, and thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Wills, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, members. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
All right, be well.